So many great shows have come out recently, and in a season packed full of them, one stood above the rest, and that would be Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, a show that quickly rose up to be one of my favorites of all time. So I'm here today to tell you why you should watch Mushoku Tensei. Before even watching this show, I had heard quite a bit about it. Almost universally praised, it seemed to be the hot new thing of the season. So going in, my expectations were pretty high, and the show absolutely delivers. We begin this journey following our main character, who quite frankly is a good-for-nothing, who leeches off his parents' money, and even when they die, he doesn't show up for the funeral. This guy is scum. He then gets kicked out of his apartment, and while wandering around murmuring to himself in anger, shame, and self-pity, he is hit by a truck. This truck does kill him, but offers him transportation into a new world, and gives him a second chance at life. Now, I'm not really well versed into the world of Isekai, which is basically a genre where the main character is transported and needs to survive in another world. However, the idea of a do-over is quite nice, especially for someone like him. Now, in no way am I saying this guy is a good dude and you should sympathize with him. He's still pretty scummy, but in the same breath, it was also really nice to see him working in this new life to create a better version of himself, and to overcome many of the obstacles that held him back in his last one. Now, one of the first things you'll probably notice about this show is its crazy good animation, coupled with great sound design, and just for a cherry on top, has a great musical soundtrack. Just watch this clip because I'm pretty sure it speaks for itself. And if you still doubt, then don't. It had me in awe at the scenery of this world, and I'm sure you will too. The world in general was just so awesome. Each of the locations seems so fresh and unique. You get to spend quality time in each of these new areas, leaving the world extremely fleshed out. The cultures, politics, geography, and so much more seems to open up to us the longer we stay. The world building in this show is truly something special, because to give me this sense of realness and intrigue for a place I only got to spend 11 episodes in is truly worth every bit of praise. Like the name implies, this is a reincarnation, and just like Rudeus, we have to start from somewhere. You'll learn about the world alongside him as we, the viewer, also start to adjust and learn the rules of this new universe. Having this format allows for a lot of the clunky but necessary exposition to be avoided, in turn for a more sleek experience where we learn about the world with our main character in a sort of educational experience. Just like a kid at first, this world seemed endearing and small, but gradually the world began to open and expand into a fleshed out, living, breathing world, filled with cities and countrysides, humans and monsters, and so much more waiting to be known to the audience. It invokes a real sense of adventure and captures the intrigue of fantasy, and while as fantastical and fictional as this world may be, a lot of aspects are strangely realistic. Many of the people, ideas, and motives were oddly authentic in a sense you don't see much of in this medium. And don't worry, all of you hungry for action, there is still plenty of that in this show. They will not leave you starved in any way, and you will receive your fill quite nicely with some cool ass fights. And while they are there, they don't take up the majority of the show. Like I said before, this show has a heavy focus on the world and our main character overcoming his trauma from the past and growing into the best version of himself while navigating such a new place. So should you expect fights and action? Of course, but the show does take it slow at times and focuses a lot on our characters and their relationships with the people and world around them. And not even an intro could break the immersion of this show. Each of them was integrated into the episode with some music and cinematic shots. I thought it was really neat, and it's a cool change from the abrupt cuts to a song and serialized intro that many other shows do. On the topic of intros, the outro as well is amazing. Like I said before, the soundtrack for this show is really good. If it be at the beginning, end, or everywhere in between, you'll hear pianos, violins, and a bunch of instruments playing such amazing melodies. Now, this show hits so many marks and does such a great job in almost everything. However, I would say that the only issue I had with it was the fan service. Now look, I get it. Most people wouldn't complain about that type of stuff, and I will admit it is pretty passable for most of the show. However, it is still there, and just personally, I'm not big into that whole thing in general unless it's done in some pretty strict moderation. And I know I'm making myself out to sound like some stingy prick trying to sound above it all, and I will admit some of it was even funny at times. The show did have its moments of overdoing it though. Also, everyone in this world seems to be doing it, so there is that, I guess. And I mean everyone. It's kind of funny to a certain extent. And I'm not gonna lie, the show was pretty funny in general. Some of the humor was good, and the show has its moments that get a chuckle out of you. And no, I'm not referring to the fan service scenes, although on super rare occasions, it could be a little funny. But this show is really about that balance, and while it does have its humor, it's also coupled with some pretty heavy scenes and topics. So in a way, the show almost has something for everyone. But what a great show. I found myself loving it more and more each episode, because this show is super addictive. I always found myself gravitating back to watch it, and I could never leave it down for more than a few hours before picking it back up again and continuing. A show like this is a true gift, and they don't really come by all that often. And the show is relatively early in its life, and has even had its second season confirmed, which is supposed to arrive in July of this year. A season that I am really looking forward to, because I can't help but feel myself wanting more. This show is great, and I wasn't expecting it to, but as of now, it seemed to crawl itself into my top 10. So if that says anything about this show, it should tell you to watch it now. Buy into this fantastical journey filled with adventure, wonder, and so much more that is waiting to be discovered. So go watch this show, and transport yourself into the wonderful world of Mushoku Tensei.